we can talk college football later on. College football, the video game. We'll also talk college football throughout this entire podcast. But first, we got Delvin Joyce joining us. Delvin, JMU Athletics Hall of Famer. He's the all-time leader in career all-purpose yards, and he's taken some time out of his Wednesday to talk with us about his JMU career, NFL career, and running game. So, Delvin, how are you doing?
Fantastic, man. I'm doing great. Thanks for the reminder that I used to be somebody. So I may have to have you tell that to my kids at one point.
Look, you got the jersey behind you. I feel like you got the reminder often.
There you go. Yeah, I guess you're right. But this is a treat for me to be on here with you guys. I listen to you guys all the time, especially when I'm wearing my rose-colored JMU glasses, and you guys always bring me back down to earth. So, I love it.
I think we need to put that like in our about us section. Yeah.
Tune into us when you need to. I think it's our own way of. I think we call it therapy whenever it's after a tough game where we have to just get all of our terrible thoughts out, and we found that a podcast is probably the best way to complain about a Utah State nail biter.
That's right. That we almost choked away like you choked away that Charlotte game.
I did choke it away, guys. Look, it was the first game of the season. We were getting the jitters out. I hadn't figured out how to run the option. Now that I know how to run the speed option, it's over. I mean, Io is running for no joke 250 yards per game.
Let's go. I love that. I love it.
It's a great time. It's awesome. I appreciate that face, Bennett.
That's impressive stuff. Yeah, the running game looks like it could be impressive this year. I don't think there are any running backs on the roster who are going to run for 1,000 career yards, have 1,000 career receiving yards, and 1,000 career return yards, which Delvin was able to do at JMU. I was just curious, how does one, I guess, get the role of both running back, returner, get that many receptions? Do you have to lobby coaches? What was it about your skill set that let you do a little bit of everything extremely well?
Well, it's interesting, man. I think part of it is just being a jack of all trades, master of none. I think on some level, I was a pretty good running back, but I wasn't a great running back. I had great hands. I had good hands, but I didn't have great hands, great enough to be a receiver. And then there was a guy named Curtis Keaton who actually transferred to JMU from West Virginia, and he became the feature running back, and I had to move to receiver that year. And so I just think it was a combination of a lot of things, but thankful that I had the opportunity to do a lot of things for the team.
That's awesome. I got to know, how did you find your way to Harrisonburg? How'd you end up choosing JMU? Because this was an era that it wasn't the pomp and circumstance that it is now around JMU.
Yeah, so I have a very convoluted story when it comes to JMU. You guys may know this. I was actually an unrecruited, uninvited walk-on. So I had some friends from my high school that were going to JMU. I actually applied as a regular student. At the time, they had a program for Black kids called Perspectives Weekend. And I came to JMU for Perspectives Weekend, where I got to be a high school student on campus. And lo and behold, they actually put me with football players. And it's just kind of a crazy story. But I decided, I wanted to come to JMU because of that experience. And showed up on the first day of school after they had finished training camp for an open tryout, and they let me somehow on the team magically.
So how does that go with Mickey Matthews? We've heard the stories of him and everything. Was this was Mickey era, right?
Yeah, so it was Mickey era, but my coach, my freshman year was a guy named Alex Wood. So this was the Alex Wood year. So I had Alex the first 2 years, Coach Wood the first 2 years. And I'm so thankful to that guy. Like, he didn't have a phenomenal JMU coaching career, but he gave me an opportunity. So I am forever grateful to that dude. And to be honest, I don't know that I would even make the team right now. Like, I don't doubt that I would be talented enough to be on the team, but I just think where the program is right now, I don't think that I would even have been given the opportunity to make the team, right? Like, the program is just in such a good place.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So how do you go from uninvited walk-on to then doing everything? I guess when did you start to, like, I know it sounded like you weren't sure you were even going to like get on the team. When were you sure that, like, hey, I'm on the team and I'm good enough to contribute for the team?
Yeah. So there's this thing called scout team. and I was scout team tackling dummy extraordinaire. And I'm telling you, my job, my entire mission in life was to go out and embarrass the first team defense. So once I had that opportunity, and by the way, like they would make me like the feature back of the other team, and I was trying to embarrass everybody on the other team. So much so that most practices I didn't have any skin on my arms. Like we had the old school turf back in the day. You know what I'm talking about?
The painted concrete.
Oh, it was awful. So, you leave practice and you have no skin anywhere. But that was my goal to embarrass the defense. And then, the coaches started to recognize that I actually had talent, and they put me on the travel squad, even as a true freshman who had no scholarship money. Thankfully, they didn't blow my red shirt, and I just started to build confidence. There's this thing where when you actually start to play with people, you see them on TV and they look superhuman, but when you actually get on the field and you get around them, you realize that you can actually play with them. And the more I started to build that confidence, the more I recognized that I could play.
And now you're one of the few Dukes that then had an NFL career, went on to play in the pros, and a lot of JMU players right now, or not a lot, I think 3 or 4 of them, undrafted free agents, potentially trying to fight for that 53-man roster spot. What was your career and journey like within the NFL with the Giants?
Yeah, so also convoluted, just like with JMU, I didn't get drafted, or I didn't get signed as an undrafted free agent right out of college. So I actually went to work as a financial advisor right out of college, right, for like 6 months. And in fact, I was sitting at a cubicle when the player pro personnel for the Giants actually called me to tell me they wanted to bring me in for a workout. Like, I legit thought it was Ashton Kutcher. You guys don't even know who that is because you're so young.
Punk. We're not that young. I know Punk.
Thank you. Punk. I was going to say, man, but I thought I was getting punked. I was like, yo, who is this playing on my phone? And so, to have an opportunity to play pro football was always a dream. But to have an opportunity to do it in New York, in that city, with those fans and with some of the rock stars that we had on the team, I mean, I learned so much about how to be a professional, not just on the field, but also off the field, which I think is carried over into my professional life now.
Yeah, are you still doing, I guess, financial planning type things? What's your current gig? And I guess what was it like transitioning from the NFL into what you do now?
Yeah, I'm a certified financial planner, and so I help people, build and grow wealth and create plans for their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. The transition was cool, primarily because I started in the industry before I came to the Giants. I took advantage of the NFL's off-season internship program every year. So I did an internship every single year to make sure that when I was done playing football, the only thing on my resume wasn't football player, right? And so did that, and I learned how to talk to people and navigate corporate America. And so the transition for me wasn't tough. I'd say the thing that a lot of players struggle with is that when they're done with that NFL career, they have no idea what they want to do, right? And you tend to sort of hang around to figure out if it's actually over. And you waste a lot of time, you waste a lot of good years, and you also waste a lot of money. And so for me, because I felt like I was always playing with house money, when it was done, I was like, all right, let's go. It's time to do it, right? And so I didn't really languish, I don't think, in that transitionary period. I went full steam ahead into my career.
I got to know the mindset that you had throughout your football career, because in high school, were you thinking, I'm going to play at the collegiate level, and then you didn't get any offers, or you then decide to go to JMU as a student, and then you have to ramp back up and go as a walk-on? Like, how is that mindset going through your football career?
Yeah, it's I would say my dad gave me maybe the greatest gift of my life, professionally and personally. So I like to say he gave me something called stick-to-itiveness, where you don't really give up. And so really the rap on me coming out of high school was that I was too short, right? I was like 5'3", like 150 pounds. And my dad, as an adult, was 4 feet 10 inches tall. And my dad told me to never let anybody tell me I was too small to do anything. So to your question, Jack, I never really, even though every single college and university in the country passed on me out of high school, I was never really discouraged. I just said I'll go to JMU and I'll walk on the team. And then same with the NFL. Like while I was sitting in that cubicle at my firm in Washington, D.C., I sent my highlight tape from JMU out to all 32 NFL teams, and it only took one team to call back, and it was the Giants. So to your question, it was more so a function of stick-to-itiveness and not really being ready to give up on that goal.
I think if I'm remembering correctly, I think the football team had posted on social media, you had came in pretty recently, I think, for whatever they're calling them, the Wednesday Wisdom. I think you talked about that stick-to-itiveness. What was your message to the team? I know they teased that, but didn't give a ton of insights. I was curious kind of what you talked to the current guys about.
Yeah, man. By the way, first off, that was a real treat. Like I was geeking out because what you got to know about me is I am a bigger JMU football fan than I am a JMU football alum. So the guys were like, I can't believe you know my name. I'm like, of course I know your name. I mean, right? But really the message was around fighting through adversity. And then I talked about 6 lessons that I learned throughout my professional journey or my athletic journey that helped me to transition successfully into corporate America. So things like, making sure that you're always performing at your optimal level, taking your practice seriously, those sorts of things that I learned professionally through athletics that have helped me to be successful now.
All right. So let's take off the JMU alum hat then and put on the JMU football fan hat.
Let's do it.
Last season, we went into the year, high hopes. We said the offensive line, it's a bunch of old guys. They know what they're doing. They've been together. They got Kalon Black. They have Tyson Lawton. They have Latrell Palmer. This running game should be the best in the group of 5. And at times it may have floundered. It may have looked, this is coming from a non-football player. So I'm not watching the all 22. I'm sitting there and I'm like, why can't they just hit a hole and pick up 6 yards? Why are we averaging 3 yards a carry?
Yeah.
Is that wrong of how I'm looking at it? And also, were there actual issues that you saw as a JMU football fan from last year?
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. I mean, I think from a fan's perspective, we all want every time they hand the ball off for it to be a home run.
Yes.
And in reality, the offensive coordinator has scripted, the entire offensive playbook. And a lot of times those plays are designed to only get 3 yards. The challenge that we had is that sometimes we were handing the ball off and we were getting negative yards. In fact, I learned from this Sports News podcast that every time we handed the ball off, we were taking like 2 points off the scoreboard. I don't know if you guys
Thank you. Expected points added is maybe the best stat in all of football.
Not this in July. Oh my.
I'm an avid listener, guys. But so yeah. So I think 2 things. I mean, I think the first part is that, not every handoff is going to be a home run, but certainly you would expect to at least pick up the 3 yards if the play is designed to get 3 yards. I think the biggest challenge, because I had the same expectations for this offense coming into last season. I thought we would have a fantastic running game. I thought Kalon Black, I thought Latrell Palmer, his freshman year, I was like, this guy's going to break every single JMU rushing record. And somehow his career just like, and I love that kid. And then Van Horst got hurt again. And so obviously you guys understand that. But I think that the biggest challenge, and you guys have talked about this on your pod, is that we didn't tackle in training camp.
So this isn't, I'm not crazy for continuously bringing this up. Is this an actual thing?
No, it is an actual thing, because what you have to understand as a running back, right? As a running back, as I'm reading my holes, there are potentially opportunities for me to run a certain way or another way. And if we're not tackling to the ground, I might fool myself on these plays into thinking that this is a hole or an avenue that's going to be open on any given play, right? So you build a lot of bad habits. I think when I was with the Giants, Tiki Barber used to call it iron pyrite. He's like, oh, you took the iron pyrite, right? Which essentially means you went for that hole when really the cutback was wide open. But you saw that little flash of daylight and you thought you could hit it, but it was fool's gold. The gold was on the cutback. And if you're not tackling the running back to the ground, then, in practice, where I'm getting arm tackled and all these things, I'm going to fool myself into thinking that's the read. And I think a lot of the timing was off. I think the vision for a lot of our backs was off. I mean, they had the bouncies, right? I mean, a lot of times the cutback was there. They were bouncing it outside, trying to outrun people. And I just think in a lot of ways it didn't work.
Gotcha. I was curious from your perspective too, because for us, we'll go on, right, and we'll blame everyone. We're like, the offensive line's not doing enough. The running backs aren't doing enough. How much of it can you tell, I guess, when you're watching is like, oh, that's clearly the offensive line is missing an assignment or something like that? Or how much of it was that the guys were maybe not cutting back when they should have last year?
Yeah, when you see a guy get tackled in the backfield for a loss, I mean, typically that's going to be a blown assignment on the offensive line. So those are pretty easy to pick up. I would tell you more times than not, there was a lack of vision and a lack of reads from some of our running backs. Like, and I'm watching. And by the way, I'm a crazy fan. You do not want to watch a JMU football game with me in person or at my house because I'm going crazy. And there were so many times that like I just wanted to break my, coffee table because they just missed the reads. And I'm telling you, it's because the timing and a lot of the reads were off because they just weren't used to the contact and the tackling from training camp.
So now looking at this season, bring back Tyshawn Wyatt in a big way with the NIL. Shout out to the Montpelier Collective for keeping Tyshawn Wyatt. Then you got Carter Sweezy, Tanner Morris, Cole Pott. The offensive line, they're experienced, and I feel like we're on Groundhog Day. We're saying it all again a year later. They're experienced. They're old. They have arguably the best transfer group of 5 running back in Adei, George Petaway. I feel like we're saying the same thing again. What can this group do, offensive line and running back, to have a more successful season and return to kind of that ground and pound successful running game that we've been accustomed to as JMU fans?
Well, I do think the first key is the offensive line has to stay healthy, right? I think we had some injuries early last year that also kind of threw off some of the continuity along the offensive line. So if this group can stay healthy, and it looks like they're doing the work in the weight room to stay healthy, if they can stay healthy, they're going to be amazing. Cole Potts, I think, is a pro. I've known Cole since he was in high school. I had a friend who was like, I got this kid, he's getting recruited by JMU, send him a video. And I recorded a video and I was like, yo, you got to go to JMU. So I think he is a pro as I've watched his career. But I think the other factor is that we actually have some home run hitters like Petaway and Adei. I think those guys are absolute home run hitters in the same way that Khalid Abdullah and what's my other guy that was there with Abdullah?
Carden.
Carden, and then the other
Marcus
kid,
Marshall.
Trey Sharp.
No, come on, man. You're making me feel old now. I can't remember anything.
He was there with Khalid?
He was there with Khalid, or right after Khalid. He just graduated like 2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh,
Percy.
Percy, yeah.
I forgot how old Percy was, that he overlapped with like everybody. Yeah.
Percy was a sophomore. Percy played for like 2 years while I was still in school.
Yeah, that guy played like 12 years, I think. But I think, those guys were certified home run hitters, and that's what I think Petaway and Adei are. And that's going to have a huge impact because if you got to guard against the home run, every now and then, you're just going to be able to pick up 4, 5, 6 yards and start to gut some teams.
You mentioned the vision. I'm always curious because obviously this comes as a surprise to no one. I was never a running back. And when you watch when you watch on your couch, you can see everything because the camera's so high. It's like, oh my God, why did this guy not cut back or go around? Obviously different if most of the running backs are below 6 feet tall, right? The offensive linemen are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". How do you sort of develop that vision to know where to go and to hit the right spots, even when it's quite crowded at the line of scrimmage?
It's a hard thing. But you got to have patience. And so really where I think most running backs fail is that from a young age, you're taught to hit the hole hard, right? Hit the hole as hard as you can. And in a lot of cases, when you're running a pro style offense, there's so many blocking schemes that are happening at the line of scrimmage. And a lot of those schemes are developing late. And I think if you look at Le'Veon Bell, he's like the most patient running back ever. and he's the best at just letting the play develop. There's a big difference, though, between letting the play develop and tiptoeing, right? So at some point, you got to make a decision and put your foot in the ground and go north and south. But I think that's one of the things that made Latrell, I was so excited about Latrell Palmer because he was such a patient runner. But unfortunately, with our scheme last year, just his patience didn't really work out for him, and then he had the ball handling issues. So, but I think it's the patience that helps you to see the play develop so that you can see more.
Palmer, his freshman year, I feel like he had a few where he like waited for a second and then hit the hole and burst out. I mean, he was pretty unbelievable when he was on.
He was amazing. Yeah. He was like beast mode. I thought he was, beast mode reincarnated.
Yeah.
As a Seahawks fan, I was very excited with he did the dreads and all, and he'd just be flying at the goal. So many. The fumble rooskies were the issues with him. He had the fumbles. Delvin, my last question. I was going between two. I'm gonna go with this one here. We talk a lot about growth. Like we see Latrell year one, and we go every year, this guy's just gonna get better and better. Even Chauncey Logan, his freshman year, we expected him to take a massive step forward. Now, some injuries, maybe scheme, the emergence of D'Angelo Pons, he didn't necessarily take the extreme next step. Do we as fans maybe overvalue the growth we are going to see from a player from year to year? And is it more so a long-term vision?
Yeah, that's a really hard question. I think part of it is there's always that sophomore slump. Like you always have these amazing expectations, especially if you come off a great freshman campaign. And then expectations go through the roof. But I also think that a lot of times players have a hard time meeting those expectations, especially in this day and age of social media where everybody's patting you on the back and telling you how great you are. And so I do think there is a lag between how hard you work in the off season based on some of your prior success. And I think the great ones continuously find a way to push themselves in the off season, work just as hard as they did to get there. And that's where I think you see some of the extraordinary growth from year to year. Not saying that that's not the case for some of those players, but I think there's a couple of other factors. You never know how the scheme changes, how the coaches may decide to use someone a different way because they saw some of that talent in a prior year. And so while they're still being effective, they're just not being utilized the same way that got them the same sort of notoriety in their prior year. So I think there's a combination.
I've got a question for you. My last one. Who is outside of yourself, who would be your favorite JMU running back of all time? And what did you like about their game?
My favorite JMU running back. And by the way, I watched that episode. I was so humble that you guys even included me because I didn't belong on the list, by the way. But I will tell you that my favorite JMU running back has to be Curtis Keaton.
I knew that was coming.
And I'm telling you, I'm just telling you guys, Curtis Keaton is the best football player to ever put on a JMU football uniform.
Wow.
Period.
Over Rodney Landers.
If you were to look at, and by the way, they wore the same number. And I loved Rodney Landers. But apples and oranges. The guy was a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
But if you looked at Curtis Keaton, the guy looked like a football player. I've never seen anybody work as hard as that dude. Like that guy taught me how to work hard. I promise you, I don't have an NFL career if I don't work out with Curtis Keaton in the off season, right? So he worked hard. The only thing he didn't have great hands. And I hope he's watching this because he would say he had amazing hands, but the guy had bricks for hands. But as far as toting the mail, nobody could run the football. He was the quintessential football player. He had vision. He had speed. He had strength. And he had durability. The guy never got hurt.
Man, should have talked to you before we did our blind rankings.
Who did we? Number one was Warren Marshall, right?
Yeah, I gave him a lot of love for the all-time rushing.
He's all-time rushing leader.
Yeah.
Well, Delvin, you had to be included because you have the RB next or T, however they did it back in the Alex Wood days. I don't know if it was tailback or halfback or RB, whatever it was. But you have the RB next to your name and you're number one in the all-purpose yards. So that if that was left out, that would have been a tough look.
I'll take that. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate everything that you guys do. You guys have a great podcast. I'm serious. Whenever I am like, yo, JMU's going to the college football playoffs, I just turn your podcast on and you guys bring me right back down.
I think I might be the opposite this year. Just looking at the roster, I'm going. I might be too optimistic on them this year.
Let's go, Bennett. Let's go.
Excited.
All right, I might be the one that has to throw water. I'm still the one. I've talked with a few people. I'm still very worried about the Charlotte game, and some fans are thinking that it's going to be. Look, I think I'm mentally preparing for a loss, but that's just me.
I too am worried about the Charlotte game. Also because I live in Charlotte.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
If we lost to Charlotte, I mean, that would be hell for me.
Yeah.
But I'm hosting a tailgate in my neighborhood. So Curtis Keaton lives in my neighborhood with me. And so we're going to have a tailgate. So if you guys want to come down, let's do it.
Look,
that feels like in
it's going to be a tough game. I lived in Charlotte as well, worked for UNC Charlotte. The 49ers gave me some paychecks over the years. If JMU loses, I'm not going to hear the end of it from them.
The quarterback concerns me. The transfer from Florida.
That's what
I just don't know what he is and how he's going to play, and that's what worries me a little bit.
Yeah. Look, he's really good in the video game.
Especially because we don't. But I was going to say, especially because we don't know what's happening with our defense right now, especially our defensive line, and so, but we'll see.
That feels. I was going to say it feels unfair though for like a Turkey Bowl Thanksgiving football game. You could have Delvin Joyce and Curtis Keaton in the same neighborhood. That doesn't seem fair. Kids involved. I mean, my God.
I'm a golfer, man. I play golf and table tennis. That's it.
All right.
That'd be a loaded all-star Turkey Bowl type of team.
It would.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, Delvin, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and hope to have you on. We might have to bring you on every few weeks to talk running game updates because the insights you gave were fantastic.
Let's do it, man. I'm in. I appreciate you guys, man. Let's do it again. Go Dukes.